Hello and welcome to Geek First Sidequest, your weekly stop for video game news, reviews, and other crazy stuff that we're going to talk about today here on the Geek First Podcast Network. I'm your host, the squeaky clean Dylan Musk, and I have with me the haptic Taylor Field for the second week in a row. How you doing tonight, my friend?
I'm doing good. Yes, 2 weeks back to back. This is unheard of. This is supposed to be like a Sidequest first or something.
I don't know. Yeah, I feel like I usually try and do the rotation, but this week it just made sense to have you on here to talk about Mario Kart, and then a bunch of other things that are very Taylor focused kind of happened. So it was just the heavens needed this thing to happen. It was a quantum connection. So yeah, very excited for this episode. Some quick plugs to get out of the way here. So I mean, make sure to join that Discord. It's a good place to hang out and all that, where we talk about some of this fun stuff as it drops. Patreon to get episodes early and ad-free, such as the Marvel Snap bonus episode that I recorded on Friday. That is on Patreon, going to go up, I guess, Monday night. It's going to be connected to this episode as a one sort of thing, but that's you can get that 4 or 5 days early, because that's going to drop on, I think, Friday later this week. So a little bonus episode this week. And other than that, we just got a lot going on in the Geek First world. We're covering Secret Invasion on a weekly basis. We have 2 movies, Oppenheimer and Barbie, are coming out this week. We just had our 8-year anniversary cast. That was very fun. Thank you, everyone, for sending in questions. Anything on your end you would like to plug, Taylor, before we get into some of this stuff here?
Oh, goodness me. I feel like there should be something I need to be plugging off right now, but I think you nailed it. I think you got it all.
I like the idea of plugging off. I don't know. I like that. Taylor, on a scale of 1, I'm going to go to scale 1 to 100. How hyped are you for Assassin's Creed Mirage at the moment that we're recording, July 17th, 2023?
I'm a full 100.
You're at a full 100.
Yeah.
Damn,
Yeah.
I love to see it. Well, are you so hyped that you are going to be getting yourself a haptic gaming system, Assassin's Creed Mirage Special Edition? What I thought looked like a fucking straitjacket when I first saw it, but it's essentially like a gamer shirt that I guess looks like activewear, but it kind of just looks like the inside of a shirt. Like, it does not look like the thing that should be outwards to the world. And essentially you put this shirt thing on to your body, and then there's all sorts of haptics in it, and then you can really feel, you can hashtag feel the assassin, is that how they put it on the store page here. So you're at a full 100. Do you need this to get your experience to hit that full 100, to get that full immersive experience of feeling like you're getting stabbed and whatever else?
Is there a price attached to this, I should ask?
There's got to be. I don't think it's on this page that I'm on. Maybe it hasn't been announced yet, but I think they've made other ones. Like, I don't think this is the first one of its kind. It's just the first one that came across my radar at the very least.
I think it's a cool concept. Ubisoft is always experimenting with these kinds of things. They're just getting jiggy with it. I don't know if I'd necessarily want to spend a lot of money on something like this. Mm-hmm. That being said, you pair this off with that VR Assassin's Creed game that they unveiled. And I think you got you got something very.
You're truly going
there.
in the animus at that point.
Truly going into the animus, but like, I don't know, how's it gonna feel like if you get stabbed? Am I gonna feel like stab pain? Like, how immersive is this going to be?
Here's what they say: you will be able to feel your precise movements when you take down your targets, but beware, they're out to get you. Don't let your enemies get too close, or you will feel the consequences.
Okay.
But also, I saw like a post that, like the initial post that was shared in our Discord, said that the suit will include multiple different sensations, such as impacts and parkour, which I don't. What is the sensation of parkour on your body? Is it just like, does it contract so you feel like you're sweating or something like that? It will also incorporate some exclusive sensations never felt before. So I know that they just mean like, they've made other shirts, and in this one they have like new features. But the sentence, it's going to incorporate some exclusive sensations never felt before, just had me rolling.
Never
at how
before,
stupid and marketing-y that is.
Yeah. That's quite flamboyant. Oh my goodness. I would love to wear one and feel these experiences that I've never felt before in my life, apparently. But yeah, it depends on the cost. I'm assuming this is obviously paired with Assassin's Creed Mirage as the advertising that's being displayed here.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm down to try a new experience. What is it? Scroll up for a second. I'm just curious what right here. So it looks
included?
like
you get a bunch of
gel
stuff in there.
pads.
The game
storage
code, of course,
pouch,
that's important.
Game code, yeah. So interesting. Okay, what's included there? 20 gel pads. So I wonder, like, are you replacing the gel pads
Oh,
in the suit?
I wonder. And you only have 20, and then you only get 20 sensations, and then you're
20
fresh out of
sensations.
sensations.
Gross.
I love even just the headers on this website, like technologies, additions, games, and then just sensations is its own. I don't know. The use of the word sensation over this thing is just making me feel a bit weird. But yeah, I wish there was a price on here because I'd love to know how much this is. But dude, I would want nothing more in this world than to listen to a Taylor review of this fucking suit. So I don't know if it's like cheap. I would love to. Maybe we should reach out, see if we can get a sponsor, like get a little code. Maybe we can send out a test one for you to try out.
Absolutely.
I mean, you do have a huge Assassin's Creed Facebook page, so honestly, don't even do it through Geek First. Just email them from that Facebook page, and like maybe you could get one of these things to try on.
That's true. That's absolutely true. Now, no release date yet. So this is not dropping when the game drops. I take it.
Yeah, I guess you would think that they would just say the release date of the game, which is public, right? It's like October, November, or something like that, right? Yeah, so maybe it's going to take longer, which would be weird. I can't imagine anyone being like, "Man, I got to wait to get myself in there with the exclusive sensation suit." So,
This is just it's a step towards that Ready Player One scenario.
we're getting there slowly but surely.
Yeah.
So I had to bring that up because I just thought that was so silly. But let's talk about some video games here. So, last week, the next wave 5 of the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Pass. Did I say wave 5 already? So many words to say. Dropped. So 2 more Grand Prix came out along with 8 courses, but 3 new characters. So you got the Feather Cup and the Cherry Cup, and then you have the 3 new characters. So going through the courses here, in the Feather Cup, you got the Athens Dash from Tour, Daisy Cruiser from GameCube, Moonview Highway from the Wii, and Squeaky Clean Sprint, which is a brand new course that we saw in that trailer when they first announced this. And then in the Cherry Cup, you have Los Angeles Laps from Tour, Sunset Wilds from Game Boy Advance, Koopa Cape from Wii, and then Vancouver Velocity from Tour, which I've been very much excited for. And I want to jump right over to that one. I'm going to skip right to the last course in here because I saw that this course was added to Kart, to Tour like a couple of years ago, and I just could not wait to get my hands on Vancouver Velocity as a resident of the city. And I got to say, I feel like they freaking nailed it. Like they have a lot of the iconic locations, like Rogers Arena. Like the lap thing is like the steam clock, which is an iconic Vancouver thing. You got the Capilano suspension bridge that you're going across. I think you're going up to like Grouse Mountain a little bit, do some skiing quickly. Rogers Arena, Stanley Park. You're kind of going on the boardwalk down there, the seawall rather. The Olympic torches, you go under those at some point. And it's one of those classic tour courses where like each lap you're kind of going over some of the same areas, but then you kind of turn down different streets and you go through Roger Arenas in like 2 different kind of ways and whatnot. So I freaking love this course. I think it's great as a resident of the city, but also just a really fun course in general. Even though it's maybe a bit simple, I don't think there's any points when you're flying in the sky or any parts where you're underwater or anything. But I don't know. It's really just fun to see all these iconic locations. But yeah, have you had a chance to jump in all these courses yet?
I have, yeah. I think the Vancouver one is a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. Notably, when I booted it up and Madison was just watching, it's like, Vancouver does not have this much snow. What is this?
Yeah, I mean, they definitely cheese the scale of it a bit, like maybe up on the mountain there, but it's pretty quick to get to that snow.
Mm-hmm. But visually beautiful. Like I really got a kick out of just when you come. I'm assuming it was the Grouse Mountain part when you come off, and this was like the only real part where you're flying and you're descending down, and it's just the cityscape. It's just neon lights, nighttime aesthetic, which is both very very cool in combination. So I love the map. I thought it was a good time.
Yeah. Is there what are the other highlights from you or the next highlight? Is there any here that you were very excited to see? Like any favorites? I know you love Double Dash, right? So maybe excited to see Daisy Cruiser.
Well, I'm Daisy Cruiser. Was that?
That's the cruise ship one where you like go through and like the tables are kind of swaying back and forth, and you're going through like jacuzzis and stuff like that.
I didn't realize that was actually from Double Dash. It's been a long time since I played Double Dash, but that is notably easily the one that stands out to me the most. Anything Mario and beach themed, like Mario Party 7 on the cruise ship, Mario Sunshine, like those
Right.
titles stand out so exponentially high for me compared to other ones. And so that was fun. And I was grooving with the table sliding back and forth. That was a lot of
Hmm.
fun. It's a shorter map or shorter course, but it's still very enjoyable.
Yeah, it's one of those like I guess that was the I guess the third Mario Kart at that point. I'm trying to think when the handheld ones would have come out. But yeah, probably the third one. So still like the courses were generally pretty simple at that point in time. Just like
Hmm.
the Game Boy Advance. But I felt like so they added Sunset Wilds from Game Boy Advance and I feel like sometimes those ones like those courses were very simple, right? Because it was kind of the same tech as like the original Mario Kart. So the courses aren't really great. And obviously they give them huge glow up here visually. And that's where I was really blown away by Sunset Wilds. I felt like they really went hard on the visuals of it. And they still have those classic color blocks that they would use in the original Mario Karts and stuff to decide where where the actual course is. But I just thought like visually that one was quite stunning and kind of a surprise because obviously it did not look like that on in the original console appeared on.
Yeah, no kidding. I'm just thankful that they're doing all of these vibrant
Mm-hmm.
not remake. What am I trying to say? Vibrant
Remasters, I guess.
remasters. Yeah,
I mean,
yeah. And
some
I
of them like
never.
that pretty much is a remake they would have done for that Game Boy Advance one. Other ones are probably just more of a remaster, like if it came from the 3DS or Wii or something like that. But yeah, some of them like get the full treatment.
Yeah, and I like Sunset Wilds. That was a fun one.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the ones I never played. I don't think I've played any of the GameCube courses, and so seeing the Shy Guys with like the prospector picks and stuff bumping around, like there's just some
Yes,
very
that was a
nice
good
little
addition.
elements to it. So
Yeah, and then the Wii was definitely represented in this update pretty big with Moonview, Highway, and Koopa Cape. Koopa Cape is one that I feel like in every time there's one of these waves gets announced, I hear people saying like, "Man, I really want them to bring Koopa Cape." That seems to be a favorite, and I really like it as well. And it's like somewhat beach theme, so it kind of hits the Taylor check mark there. But that one is really great with the giant pipe section, and I just love the look of it. It's so much fun. Moonview Highway feels like a bit of a weird addition because I feel like it's very similar to like Toad's Turnpike. I think it's called like the other Toad themed one at when you're at nighttime when you're going through like city streets
Mhm.
and there's cars and whatnot. So I don't know if that one felt like a mandatory addition, but I know Muds was pretty happy to see it because she was a big fan of the Wii Mario Kart. That was her favorite growing up.
right, I would have played it very remotely, but this
Hmm.
one was the one where you had like that. Or maybe I'm getting it confused with the squeaky clean one. But there you say pipes. I'm envisioning that was where you had like a downward trajectory through one of the pipes.
Yeah, that's Koopa Cape. Yeah,
That's
yeah.
Koopa Cape. Okay, yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
No, I like this one. I like this one a lot.
And then yeah, the tour courses are always so much fun because they're pretty much new courses to me because I never played that game. Los Angeles Laps I thought was okay. It was decent, but I was blown away by Athens Dash. I think that is incredibly fun. When going through the ruins, I feel like you go through in so many unexpected ways. It feels very vertical, feels very tight at certain points, and then I just feel like there's shortcuts everywhere. And sometimes you can go like up on top of some of these ruins, or you can just go like the regular way down. That one, like other than Vancouver, which I'm obviously biased for, that's probably my favorite of the bunch here. There's one more we have to talk about, but yeah, I think that Athens Dash is definitely a big highlight for me.
Yeah, the more detours and different pathways you can go in a map, the higher it'll rank for me. I
Hmm.
love that you basically don't have to worry about a red shell or green shell. You can just go your own
Right,
route and just
stick close
kind
to the
of,
wall. Yeah.
yeah, coast your way out of there. Very, very cool map, though. I was not expecting the ruins and just like going up all these different staircases and
Yes.
steps and
Yeah.
just every like little like incline you hit, you can get that like extra boost, that jump
Hmm.
like pose boost, and just keep going up. Very, very cool map.
And it feels huge, like because some of the tour ones often do that thing where it's maybe a smaller area and you're zipping and zapping back through it.
Mhm.
And Athens does a little bit of that, but I felt like they had so many other unique areas. And then the last one, which is the new one, Squeaky Clean Sprint, which we saw in the trailer, I love it because I mean last year, Grounded wasn't my game of the year. Tinykin was another one of my favorites, and I just love that kind of setting of being a little character in a huge world. And to have that in this like bathroom setting was so much fun, like dropping into the bathtub and there's like a couple points you can get a little bit of extra air and you're going back through the drain. There's like a wedding ring in the drain. You're climb around towels, flying over the toilet and stuff like that. I just really love the obstacles and how playful and fun it is. So that's another highlight for me too. Like all the new ones they've added in this Mario Kart DLC have been like exceptional. Like they had that Yoshi's Island one as well, which is really good. And I think the Sunday, whatever that one was called, the one with like all the desserts and whatnot. But yeah, really like the bathroom level. It was very fun.
Yeah, this one's definitely up there for me. This was absolute delight. I loved going through the drains and like the faucets, like spitting out the loot box into the drain. You can follow it down there and get it. And it's cool too because right after you hit the toilet, and the toilet, if you're lucky, the water's shooting out and it blasts you up. You can time it. You can get that upper area up there, which cuts getting to the finish line down. At least for me, I felt like it was much more faster getting to the finish line than going the underground way, like through the towels. So, yeah.
I don't know if I ever actually did that yet, so that's exciting and a shortcut I'll have to go check out. Did you check out any of the new characters? We have Petey Piranha, Comic, and Wiggler added in this update.
It totally went over my head that they were
Didn't
added
even notice
because
them?
I'm like, I didn't notice. I'm like, oh, where's my Waluigi? Let's pop them in. But that's so cool. That's very, very cool.
Yeah, I like using new characters here or there, but I generally like the kind of mid to lightweight characters. So Comic is obviously good. He feels like just like kind of Dry Bones or Koopa to me, which are some of my like go-to characters usually. And he's pretty cool. You know, he's doing a little bit of magic, whatnot. He's fun. He kind of like Lakitu as well. Wiggler, not really. I'm not really a Wiggler fan. And when he's getting added to he got added to Mario Golf as a DLC character. When I saw him here, I'm like, come on, like there's so many other Mario characters I'd rather see. But I gotta say that I think they did a really good job with it because when Wiggler, whenever you're fighting him as like a boss in a Mario game and you jump on his head, he turns all red and he's like shooting steam out. He does that here if you get hit by a shell or something like that. He goes red for a second and he shoots steam out of his head. So I thought that was a really just good attention to detail that I like to see. And then Petey Piranha, not really my type just because he's like one of the more heavyweight classes, which is not really my vibe. And it's weird, he looks like a GameCube character, like in terms of the visual fidelity. And I don't know if that's just what the character looks like because he was a big deal in Sunshine or something like that. But yeah, not my favorite, but I still think all these characters are pretty good additions. And I'm curious who they're going to add for the last two character slots. Do you have any wishes? I feel like there could be one non-Mario character, but I wouldn't even get my hopes up for that. I'm kind of more looking at the Mario characters as the most likely ones, obviously.
We don't have Paulina yet, do we?
Pauline's a huge miss, I would say, at this point. Yeah, I feel like that one could make a lot of sense for them to add.
Yeah, then I would, yeah.
Especially because even I think Strikers and Golf in the last 2 years have added her as a DLC character. Or Strikers, maybe she's a base character. If not, yeah, definitely added.
She was added in. She
was DLC.
Sure.
Yeah, so that she seems like prime for DLC characters at this point. And yeah, so maybe she would be one of the slots here. I would love to see like Kirby as a non-Mario character, but I think most of all, cool. I've said this multiple times, but I just really want Diddy Kong in there. Get another Kong. There's only Donkey Kong. He's been in a couple games before. Not enough Diddy Kong love these days. Obviously, Strikers did throw him a bone, but I'd love to see him brought back.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. That would be my second other pick. I'm curious though. So with the Wiggler, there's a Wiggler like cart, is there not? So you can be the Wiggler on the Wiggler.
Oh, I totally forgot that there is a cart. I should try that because that would be even more stupid fun. I don't think Petey Piranha really has. Like, I don't think there's a plant. Is there a plant car?
I don't think so. I'm assuming new characters don't come with like their own carts.
I don't think so. It's weird. I'm actually still like unlocking stuff in this game because I've probably played more of this game on the Wii U still than I have. I feel like mostly it's with the DLC that's brought me back and checking out this game some more. But I'm still getting new carts and tires and stuff every once in a while at this point. So yeah, I feel like I even still have a few I need to get. But yeah, they don't necessarily come with their own cart, which kind of makes sense, I guess. There's already enough in there.
Yeah, for sure.
Is there any courses that from you that you feel like are missing? Is there any that you are sad are not in the game yet? Because it's hard for me to really make a list of maps that are missing at this point.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, it's difficult for me to make a list, to be honest. Maybe more maps that are not part of Mario's world, I guess you could say. I'm thinking like more DK oriented ones, or more maybe like extra like Zelda ones with Link or Animal Crossing style. Branch off into those other characters they have included in there. That's
a good point because I feel like obviously there is one Zelda course, there is one Animal Crossing course. It makes sense. They're characters in the game. Even Captain Falcon's not in the game. He should, even though there's two F-Zero courses. Right. But the Inklings are in the game, but I don't think there's actually a Splatoon map. And a Splatoon map would be prime with like paint flying everywhere. They could have like some sort of paint mechanic potentially. Like that's kind of weird they haven't done that. I didn't even think about that until you mentioned it there. But that would be.
I forgot that the Inklings are actually in
prime.
the game. That would be perfect.
Yeah. And then the other one, the only one I can really think of, and the only reason it's front of mind for me is because I just have been playing the 3DS Mario Kart a little bit recently. And I don't know if this was a 3DS course or if it was a remake of an earlier one, but there's a dinosaur map where you're going through like a prehistoric. It's called Dino Jungle, I think, classic Mario Kart kind of name. But you're going over like a Brontosaurus, I think is what that one's called. Like there's a bunch of different ones that you're going through, and it's kind of like a nice prehistoric, almost it feels like a bit of a Donkey Kong-y sort of map. So I'd really like to see that one because that one is quite fun, and I really like the setting. And obviously that's a Taylor Prime pick right there too.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it's hard for me to think of any other ones that haven't been in there because like I don't really care if any of the Game Boy Advance ones or SNES ones don't make it just because visually they're not too interesting until they do a huge glow up like they did with Sunset Wilds. But yeah, like my favorite of N64, I feel like all the best courses are in the game. Maybe, there's like the one that you're going alongside the river. You like jump over a boat at some point, a lot of like dirt and whatnot. I don't think they've added that one yet. I can't remember the name of it. But other than that, yeah, there's not too many that I feel like are missing. So very excited because I think technically we only have one more drop of courses, 2 more Grand Prix, 8 more courses. I think we're only missing like maybe one or even 2. We might even have every tour course in the game, and that's obviously been a big part of this DLC. So that maybe leaves slots for some other stuff. I'm not going to be surprised if they add one more new course as well. It seems like the last couple ones have been doing that. We know that there's 2 more characters coming, so it'll be a nice, good final update. And honestly, I would not be shocked if they didn't stop there and kept adding more stuff because this game's still selling like crazy. This is a great way to get people into the Switch family or the Switch Online or the Family Plan, whatever it is, either one. So shout outs to Mario Kart. Taylor, is there any other games that you've been playing in the last week that you wanted to shout out? Because obviously you're talking a lot about Alien last week. Have you played more of that? Any updates there or any other games you've been playing?
It pains me to say I haven't gotten back around to that one. My only real game time invested has been some more Vondel and
Some more
Warzone, especially with
yeah.
the boys update, because Travis picked up Homelander and just been playing around with that. I did. It's going to be one of our topic later because I know you've been playing it, so I won't touch upon that. But I did. In addition to that, I did download Grand Theft Auto. And I played a lot of that when it first dropped. I remember 2 discs, Xbox 360 days, and you had the single player that was out for the first week, and then after that week was up, multiplayer dropped, and it was a nightmare for everyone. But I got in, and I grinded the living daylights out of that. I was exploiting bugs, and my cash stack was just through the roof, and I remember hitting level like 207 online, and I had the Gatling gun, I had all this cool stuff, and I missed the opportunity to port my character over into the next gen console. It sucks so bad. And I was always deterred to go back in there, but I kind of thought, I got my terabyte hard drive now plugged in there, and I thought let's download it because they just re-added it back on Games Pass. They had it on there, then they pulled it. They put Red Dead on there, then I think they pulled that.
Yeah, I don't think that's GTA on there right now.
And they put GTA back on there. So I got GTA, and I would very much like to just at some point get into that and just screw around online.
Yeah. I'd be down to jump in there too. Definitely just play on the Series X and see. I'm sure the load times are still kind of savage just because that game was crazy. It had like 5-6 minute boot up time, but even just seeing what the graphics are like nowadays and with some of the crazy updates that have happened. Because I've not played it in many years either, so I'd love to jump in there and check that out.
Yeah, that's just it. I fell off that wagon probably when the heists were introduced.
Yeah,
so
me too, right? That took so long that like we had played the shit out of the game, and then it's like here was the big exciting content that they promised for so long, but it came like just a little too late.
Yeah, there was already something else better that pulled our attention. So it'd be cool to kind of get into that. And like when I loaded everything up, it was neat because you could kind of pick 4 different, roles. You could be a club owner, you could be an arms dealer, you could be what was the other? There are 2 others, and so you could pick what you wanted, and then it gives you like 4 million cash. Then you can use that to kind of set up like your initial base of operations and set things up. You can customize your character, and then you get out of the jail cell or whatnot into the city, and you have your like baseline, basic pre-established base of operations for whatever role that you chose for breaking the law.
Yeah.
So it's cool how it kind of sets you up to kind of start off on your criminal path.
That's awesome,
So
actually. I did not realize that they had done that at some point because I can't remember, like, what was the setup of multiplayer when it first came out? Was there anything, or you just make a character and you just, like, dropped in the world? I don't remember there being, like, a narrative to describe who your character is.
there's no narrative. You were just doing missions.
Yeah.
It was very baseline because you had the wheel, right, where you cycle between like Trevor and the two other
Yes.
characters, and
Right,
you
and
could
that
also
was
cycle
on there
to
with the
it was
single
yeah.
player characters. So is 4 million, how much does that really get you in GTA Online these days?
I feel like it didn't get me much.
Like, were you able to buy like a simple house, or were you able to get like a car or any like
I got
upgrades
all
or
that.
something? Okay.
Yeah, it forced you basically because I didn't want to spend I didn't want to spend all the money, but it's like you have to spend at least 3 million of this 4 million to advance into the
Yeah.
game. It's like okay, well
okay.
you get your base of operations, you get a basic set of wheels, and then you buy your gun, and that's it. Then you go off into the world.
Yeah. Okay. Well, at least that's something, especially for because obviously it sounds like I don't have the chance at this point either to port my character over. It sounds like they're lost on the 360 era because that was really when I was playing that game a lot. Actually, I think I might have ported my character to PS4, and then I like barely played it over there. And I'm sure there's no way for me to transfer that back over to Series X now. That would be a bit too much fandangling behind the scenes there. But yeah, that sounds like a good time to jump back in there. So that's obviously on Game Pass. Definitely console, hopefully PC as well. I'm not too sure about that, but good timing for that. The other big Game Pass drop, we actually talked about this last week when we were doing our little summer preview, is that Exoprimal came out last Thursday. And I've played a good amount of it. I played probably a couple hours, played a few matches, got through like a bunch of the tutorial stuff. So I know I was talking to you about this on the weekend, Taylor, but just to set it up, because I felt like I just watched a ton of trailers. This was all over the place. Capcom showcases, Summer Game Fests, and maybe even Game Awards. Like, it was just, I feel like there's trailers all over the place, but I never really understood exactly what the game was. I didn't really need to. It's like, okay, it's a shooter, or you're shooting dinosaurs. Like, cool. That's a good enough setup to go have some fun. But strangely, it's well, maybe not strangely, but I guess surprisingly for me, it's a lot like Overwatch in a lot of ways. So there's 5-man teams. You're going into this certain map. It's a 5-man team. You're up against another 5-man team. Now, most of the time, you're not. It is player versus environment. You're fighting against the dinosaurs. You and your squad are sent to these different locations, and you go to the spot. You fight all the dinosaurs there, and then you go off to the next spot and fight the next wave of dinosaurs. And after each one of these little waves, it tells you are in the lead or you are currently losing to the enemy team. So there's a little bit of multiplayer in that way, that it's, telling you that you're either on pace or you're doing really well or you're off pace, whatever it is. But there's not really any direct contact at that point. And then as it goes further along, you get to this final objective. And so far, it's been a lot of similar to the payload in Overwatch. So you and your team are on this little cart, and you have to stand in the zone around the cart, and then it moves it forward. And then you can see where the enemy's team progress is on the tracker at the top. And you're just trying to get it to 100% progress, move it along the map while fighting off dinosaurs and whatnot. And then at some point during this, and this won't always happen, but in some matches it'll happen, they kind of randomize it, is you'll get to a point where when the carts are at about like 90% progress, they're almost at the finish line. That's when the two teams converge, and you end up being in the same spot on the map, and you're fighting each other. And usually it seems pretty simple. It's not like Overwatch in that tug of war kind of way. It seems like whoever gets that initial lead, that initial win or initial kill or two, they pretty much got it at that point, and they'll just like essentially sink the ball, tap it in at that point, and you kind of get the win. And then there's other ways that you can interact with the enemy team, like, you can send dinosaurs at each other, and players can control the dinosaurs and fight the enemy team, and control a T-Rex or something and go fight the enemy team. So I don't know if the idea is with this payload thing is that some people on your team should ditch the payload and just run to where the enemy teams is and go fight them, but it seems like it's very far away. So it's kind of got this light Overwatch competitive element, this light player versus environment team up sort of element to it. And structurally, it's pretty interesting. It's pretty cool. And I think why I'm enjoying the game so far is just because the minute to minute, the second to gameplay is really solid. Like the game moves really fast. Immediately they said the sensitivity is super high, which for me, like I feel like most games start the sensitivity so freaking slow. Maybe it's just my Xbox settings or something, but like really fast paced, really responsive, jumping around and dodging and all your abilities like just feel really good, and the gunplay feels really good. The aiming, obviously the enemies are dinosaurs and stuff flying around. It's all really fast paced. And so for me, it's like really good because it's just really high octane, really high adrenaline. So I'm really enjoying it so far. And then in that Overwatch way as well, you got different character classes. So it's kind of broken down into kind of long range classes, kind of more melee, tanky classes, and then support ones. So the first one's pretty simple. You have like a sniper guy. You have one guy who like shoots a bunch of grenades, one guy which is a basic gun. And then the tanky ones are where you get a bit of the Reinhardt effect, where there's a big guy with a shield and he can taunt dinosaurs to come fight him. And then the support ones I'm finding pretty interesting too. Like one of them has essentially this like shock stick, so it's like almost like a melee, like maybe you can reach like 10 feet out kind of thing, and you can stun dinosaurs, but you're not really actually dealing damage. But then he also has healing, so you can put down like a big healing circle, or you can get like this snipe sort of shot where you can snipe heal one of your teammates as well. And so just like really kind of clever little shakeups or little variations on these classes that you're kind of used to from these sorts of Overwatchy, Team Fortressy kind of games. And then, you can switch class on the fly. You like ditch your mech suit and then a new one like drops in and your character jumps in it. And you can even like ditch your suit and just be a guy with a gun. I don't know if you'd really do that. I feel like you would die in like 2 seconds flat, but it's more just like in between switching mechs you're doing that. But yeah, it's really great so far. I'm kind of surprised. I guess maybe my one big question mark and where I think I could fall off is that so far I've like played 3 or 4 full competitive matches after the tutorial stuff, and it didn't seem like there was much, if any, map variety. So there's essentially one big map that's got city. It's mostly city buildings, different streets, couple parks, that sort of thing. And so far every match I've played is like on this same map, and the path and you're going to is a little bit different. You might go through, it's almost like a Mario Kart tour course, right? You're going through the same area, but in just different ways. But then like, okay, well, when you're actually doing the arena battle against the dinosaurs, that's more or less the same. And then the payload has been somewhat the same. So just slight variations on that. So I don't know if there really is only one map and then it's just about going through it in different ways. But like, I don't know. I feel like I've seen a lot of it already. And if there's only one map, then I feel like the variety is really not great and not going to keep me around. So I'm just going to have to play a few more matches to see if that is the case, or maybe that's just part of their plan, is that like each week there's a new map, or every couple weeks there's a new map or something like that, because it's a live servicey sort of game. But yeah, that's kind of my initial thoughts. Any questions that you have just about like the gameplay or anything like that?
Well, it sounds very Overwatchy to me, but just in a very different level. And you said that it's team versus environment, basically, like the AI, the dinosaurs. Then the amount of success you hit in those like against those dinosaurs, that will put you above the enemy. Is that correct? Like, it gives you a tactical advantage, if I'm understanding that.
Not so much. It's more just like, essentially, like your first objective will be, okay, go to this area and kill like 100 dinosaurs. I don't know what it is, but it's probably, I assume, that exact same number between the two teams. And so if you kill them quicker, then you can move on to the next objective quicker. So it's pretty much just like you can get to that payload section quicker if you go through all the other phases quicker. So, and then there is those things that will be like, you can send a huge boss dinosaur at your opponent, but it seems like those kind of drop more or less at the same time. Like, I don't know if you winning one of those objectives is really giving you any that type of advantage. It's more just like you're moving through it quicker, so you have a better chance of finishing like all the objectives. And each match is like probably 15 to 20 minutes. It seems like about that. So even kind of similar to that Overwatch. Obviously, if there's sometimes in Overwatch, you just crush the opponent and win like 5 minutes. You have a quick win or something like that. But this seems like no matter what, the length of the match is always going to be more or less the same. But yeah, I feel like it seems like it's always pretty neck and neck. And I don't know if there is some like artificial rubber banding happening where if a team's falling behind, then they have to fight less dinosaurs to move on or something like that. But so far, every match I've played has either been a bit of a tug of war or just like one team's always ahead, but always by like such a minor amount that it really is coming to that final phase and that ultimate final battle, regardless of what the other situation was. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
So there's also, I want to talk about this because there's like a lot of narrative in the game, which I guess was surprising to me because I just assumed that it would be really all about this multiplayer combat, group up with your buddies and that kind of stuff. But there was like a lot of cutscenes going on before you could actually get into the game, and then the tutorial kind of makes sense as tutorial. But then like each in between all these little sections, you're getting like full on like mocapped cutscenes that are actually like really well done and they look really solid. Which I don't know why I'm so surprised about it, but I guess I just am. But then there's also this element of like the story is so dumb and over the top and the characters are so kind of cheesy and gimmicky, but I kind of feel like all of it is very intentional. Like obviously it's a game about you doing mech battling against like dinosaurs. Like obviously that initial hook is kind of cheesy, silly, over the top. And so I feel like the story is kind of going into that as well. So far I'm not too gripped by like the general lore. That's one of the things you're unlocking in multiplayer is like lore stuff. But it seems like kind of a weird thing too, where it's like if I'm playing this game with a bunch of friends, like am I going to pause in between battles to like, oh, I got to read the new piece of lore, watch this new cutscene kind of thing. I guess the idea is maybe like group up with your friends, you play a bunch of matches together, and then at the end of the night when you're all going your separate ways, then it's like, okay, now I'm just going to indulge in some story, or before I hop in on the next session, I'm going to check out some of the story stuff. So I don't know. It is a bit weird in that way because it doesn't really feel like there's any single player content to be done unless you're just doing the like tutorial sequence at the beginning. So curious to see how that evolves. And honestly, I'm just very curious to see what this game is like, what it looks like in 5 or 6 months, and if the support's there, if the fan base is still there, what kind of updates and roadmap they're looking to do with it. Because I feel like for Capcom, this is kind of an non-traditional game from them. It's a bit different with the heavy multiplayer focus and even just the energy and the vibe of it. But yeah, so far so good. So obviously this is a Game Pass title, PC and console. I'm pretty sure there's cross-play in there, it seemed like, from my experience. And yeah, definitely worth checking out. And I didn't really feel like there was any aggressive, okay, this is a Game Pass thing, we're going to throw a bunch of microtransactions at you to try and get some money out of you. There was like, if you can get this bonus starter pack, so you could unlock like 3 or 4 other characters, like classes, but you can also get those from just playing the game. And since you have 5 people on a team, it doesn't really feel like pay to win in that way. I didn't feel like, oh man, the enemy team had this one class that's so broken, this sniper that was one-shotting everyone, that it ruined the game. So, and I even had one on my team as like the healer. Someone had the kind of hard to unlock healer, and they seemed pretty cool, but didn't seem broken either. So yeah, it seems like there's good balance there between microtransaction, free to play for through Game Pass sort of thing. So yeah,
I feel like
good game.
a lot of games are drifting away from at least trying to the microtransaction negativity, because we went through a harsh period
It's true.
of that for games, and I feel like
Yeah.
some bad publicity kind of scared off a lot of other like developers from implementing that kind of thing. And I mean, Overwatch, I think Overwatch did it pretty okay. It was just cosmetics, and you earn loot boxes the more you play. And sorry, I'm assuming is that similar to here? Like, is it like a cosmetic unlock system?
There's actually a little bit of both, and I feel like it is a pretty good system where you do get chests or war chests, or I forget what the name is, but yeah, it's essentially a loot box where you get 3 random items. You might get a skin, you might get like a fucking banner, just random stuff like that, right? But then each class, the more you play that class, you're leveling up that class, and you can get to, I think, maximum level 20. Maybe they'll increase that later. And then you're getting like certain upgrades for your character. One of them might be just like straight up a stat upgrade, but then it might also be you have unlocked this new costume. And then it might even be stuff that's like not even for your class. It might just be like, here's some more currency. So it seems like there's actually a good mix where if you just really are into one class, you can focus them down and get a bunch of unlocks for them. But then you're also going to get like random loot box things that I assume all those loot box things are cosmetic, because there is, yeah, those stat buffs, but I think all those come from like at predetermined points in the level up chart.
Okay. Makes sense.
Yeah. But even that, like the customization seems fairly simple. It seems like, okay, you can get 3 kind of bonus stat things on each class, and then just like, yeah, customization, maybe that's pretty out there. But yeah, it doesn't feel like, I don't know. Obviously, I was playing like kind of near launch, so I'm sure not too many people are max level yet. But it didn't seem like a situation where, man, this guy's way stronger than me because his character is more leveled up than me. And maybe it's putting you against players with even level characters or something like that too. But But yeah, nothing too crazy there on the monetization side. So that's Exoprimal. Maybe I'll talk about it more in the future if I check it out, or Taylor, if you check it out or something like that. I would be down to play with you and the boys. That'd be a fun session there. But with that, we're going to take our first break, and we'll be right back to get into the news. Okay, we are back. First up, EA announced a new Black Panther game. So this is kind of interesting, right? Because we had rumors, a lot of talk about a Black Panther game in the last few months, but then that one game from Amy Hennig's studio, I forget the name of the actual studio, was announced, which still doesn't have a name, so I'm just going to call it the King Captain Soldier Spy game. But that's the Black Panther, Captain America, Bucky, and I think what are the Wakanda, like the soldiers called? The Dora Milaje. Yeah, there's like one of them in there too, and you kind of have these 4 characters you're switching between. Kind of seems like a narrative focused game. But it turns out that there is another Black Panther game in development. This one is very early on in development. So here's just some info on it. It's being developed by Cliffhanger Games, which is a new AAA studio based in Seattle. The upcoming title's bill is a single-player, story-driven, third-person action-adventure game. Their mission is to build an expansive and reactive world that empowers players to experience what it is like to take on the mantle of Wakanda's protector, the Black Panther. So Cliffhanger is led by Kevin Stevens, formerly of Monolith Productions. So they are making the Wonder Woman game. They made the Shadows of War game. You have other developers from Shadow of War, Shadow of Mordor, God of War, Halo Infinite, Call of Duty. So a bunch of people who have worked on some of those games are part of the studio, and they're still like bolstering the team and actively doing a bunch of hiring to get this thing going. So I think it's very early stages. Don't expect to see this game for probably another 3 or 4 years. I'd say maybe 3 years at the very earliest would be a pretty safe estimate there. And I have to read off this quote, and I don't know if this quote is just being said to bring as like a hiring thing to get people excited. I don't know if it's said so they can get some funding, but listen to this quote. We are dedicated to delivering fans a definitive and authentic Black Panther experience. Okay, sounds fair there, but then giving them more agency and control over their narrative than they have ever experienced in a story-driven game. That's a wild claim that they're saying that they're going to give you more control over the narrative than any game ever made ever in this freaking Black Panther game from a new studio. So I don't know what to think about that. That's maybe, once again, maybe that they don't really think that they're going to do that, but they're just saying that to get people kind of hyped and interested. But yeah, what is your just kind of general take on this? Are you interested, excited about the prospect of a Black Panther game?
So this is a second Black Panther game on top of Captain America Black Panther.
Yes, that's a separate game. This appears to be a game where you are probably only controlling Black Panther. Unclear which, if you're T'Challa or Shuri, who knows who you are in this game. But yeah, in this game, it seems like you are playing only as Black Panther.
This is good news to me because I feel like Xbox is severely lacking on a variety of superhero titles. While we have Midnight Suns, we definitely do not have, and this is PlayStation as well, Ultimate Alliance 3, a lot of exclusives, Wolverine, Spider-Man, Miles Morales, Spider-Man 2. There's some great titles on Sony that you don't get on Xbox. So this is good. This is a very, very good step in that direction.
Just to be clear, I believe this seems like it's going to be like a multi-plat game. You just mean like it's also coming to Xbox, is what you're saying?
Yeah, because like I most superhero games have been not on Xbox, so I'm just happy to get a little bit of love on the Xbox side now.
Yeah, but since this is EA, I would assume it's coming to, well, at least PlayStation, Xbox, PC. But yeah, obviously there is that little bit of connection between EA Play and Xbox. Not that they would drop this on there on day one or anything like that, but maybe down the line.
I'd have to look into it because like Battlefield 2042 would be a good example of that. How long it took for them to drop that on EA Access before,
which was probably because that game fucking bombed.
Sucked.
Right?
That's maybe a bad comparison. When you mentioned that quote, I'm trying to think like what is the top of the line changing narrative like game that everyone goes to? Like what is the ultimate like shaping out your outcome of a game that exists?
I mean, I immediately think of like The Quarry or Until Dawn, like games like that. Walking Dead, like those sorts of games. Even what was that game last year Xbox had that was like kind of in south of US, and it was like very similar style like that. Oh my god, I cannot remember the name of that game, but I don't know. I just feel like it's weird for like a third person action, I assume like open world Wakanda game, to be the one that's going to be like, oh no, this is the game with the definitive narrative where there's more choices than like those games. And obviously there's like some indie games that I'm sure just have like quite literally like a million choices or something like that. But it seems like a weird claim because that's not even like what I would think of like, man, a Black Panther game, I need choice. I need to make drastically different choices than Taylor. Like I feel like I'm fine with like a linear Black Panther game where like I have a predetermined story. Like that seems totally fine to me.
I'm trying to picture now, like I agree. I'm totally fine with a predetermined narrative, absolutely. But I'm trying to imagine the implications of a morality meter if we're dealing with something like you could be more like a Killmonger, or you could be more like a Black Panther as a ruler. So,
interesting. Yeah, I like that thought. That would be interesting if there was a full on like evil or good side kind of it. I'm curious. So, like, how do you feel like this game is going to differentiate itself from that King Captain Soldier Spy game? Like, some of the wording seems like it might be set in Wakanda, but I don't think they've directly said like it's going to be only set in Wakanda, and you're going to be in the city of Wakanda, and then like the countryside, and like even the idea of like a narrative in terms of like which clans you decide to team up with, and that determining like who you're going to be up against in the long term could be an interesting prospect. But I would love an open world, or it doesn't even have to be open world, but just like an expansive game set like exclusively in Wakanda. Like I don't need to go anywhere else in this game. I'm happy if it's just set there because I think that's such a great location for. I mean, you have a ton of variety, but you also have you can just do so many things with a huge high tech city like that.
Yeah, I totally agree. Keep it in Wakanda. They could add some cool DLC, or maybe you can go check out other parts of the world if you want to go to. Was Namor's place called Atlantis or Atlantia, or I'm not sure what that was called.
I think
Maybe
just Atlantis. Yeah,
Atlantis. You can go there. That'd be cool for DLC. But just focusing on Wakanda itself at the start, I think, is definitely key in comparison to. How did you word your question again? In comparison to the like King Captain?
Yeah, I guess just like how do you feel like this will be distinctly different? Because that game also seems like it doesn't even have a name yet, so I assume that game's like early-ish on. So let's say these games both take another 2 or 3 years, and they come out in like 5 months next to each other. Let's say that happens. Hopefully they're not that close. But like, what do you feel like would be the differentiation here? Or how should this game try and differentiate itself from that one, considering we have a little bit more info on that one?
I feel like it should really push to be more. And I say this loosely because I don't have the experience of some of these single-player narrative games on PlayStation, but it should focus on that more. I feel like this King Soldier Spy Captain game is going to be along the route of a co-op experience. I almost would attribute it to be more like Frontiers of Pandora, the Avatar game,
Right.
where you have like co-op and like you're just moving around doing missions and stuff like that. That's what I kind of get the gist. Or well, yeah, like 4-player co-op. I feel like that they're going to do something cooperative like that. And I think the biggest kind of change to be different is don't do the co-op. Just make it a single-player experience.
I'm pretty sure that game, and I just Googled it, is not have any co-op in it. Although it like narratively has co-op, right? It's like almost like that. It's probably not going to be like GTA, but in that way that you have like a character wheel and you're switching between characters. But it might even be a thing where like, okay, for this level, Captain America goes through the street, he busts a bunch of bad guys. Perspective switches. You're over on the Dora Milaje set now. You kill these guys in this building. Go over to Bucky's up on the roof with a gun. Like, actually, I don't even think it's Bucky. I think it's just like some other like spot. It's just some other generic guy. I don't even think it's Bucky. I keep saying that, but. Yeah, so it's actually not. It is a single player game, and it's Amy Hennig of Uncharted and stuff like that. So you'd think it's probably a very narrative focused thing. But I feel like even just the difference between having multiple characters and a different setting, even a different time period, could offer a lot of differentiation from this one. Who knows when this game is going to be set exactly? There could be a lot of options there, but that could even just change it too.
Yeah, that's fair.
Do you expect, obviously this is really just conjecture at this point, but do you expect there to be other Marvel, like I'll say non-Wakanda characters involved in this game? Do you think what you'd see a Spider-Man pop up? Do you think you'd see, I don't know, Bucky? You know, obviously in the movies he has a connection with Wakanda, but do you expect to see other characters like that, or do you think they should, or do you want them to keep it pretty confined to like, here's our Wakanda characters, and we're sticking to Wakanda for this game?
I'd like them to stay confined. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think there's anything wrong with doing that. That being said, crossovers are all the rage right now, and MCU's just tapping every single hero pot that they got.
Yeah.
And I would be surprised if this game did not do the same. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
need a lot, but maybe that is something that's explored in an end credit scene
Yeah.
where you get
Yes.
a follow up game, DLC, something along those lines. But I go back to where I mentioned before. It should focus primarily on Wakanda, and I'm sure there's lots of other MCU Marvel oriented heroes and villains that are affiliated with Wakanda that we are not even privy
That's
to.
true.
Like do a
Yeah.
lot with Claw, do a lot with MODOK would probably fit into that too, I
Yep.
imagine. So
Well, I think yeah, and even in some storylines like Storm and T'Challa are married and
hmm
stuff like that, so that could be interesting to bring her in there and have a different version than the X-Men version of
hmm
Storm that we traditionally think of. I was also like, man, I was just kind of surprised to see this for a couple reasons. One, I feel like, well, one because that King Captain Soldier Spy game already exists, so I felt like okay, interesting. They're kind of doubling down on this character, but also like Black Panther ended up being a DLC character in Avengers. He was in Ultimate Alliance 3. There was a, you know, when Wakanda Forever was coming out, Marvel Snap had a whole month dedicated to Black Panther as like the new character and stuff like that. So I feel like he's been very, not going to say overrepresented, but I feel like he's been all over the place, and especially with another AAA game, making this. I think it is interesting that they're also they're going for that Black Panther thing. So I guess they maybe have some good ideas for a narrative or story that they want to tell. I mean, I think naturally the character is just going to play super well. Like that was one of my favorite characters in Ultimate Alliance 3. He was very fun in Marvel's Avengers for how weak that game can be at times. Like the characters are great and he's very fun to play over there. So obviously in that way, like a third person action game, he's like a perfect character for that kind of thing. So that's obviously a nice tee up. But then also I was a bit surprised to see it just because Marvel games have been in a bit of a weird spot lately. Like Guardians of the Galaxy came out, didn't really do too hot. Midnight Suns came out, unfortunately didn't do too hot. Ultimate Alliance 3, I think did well enough for like what the budget was, but it like wasn't a huge explosive game. It's really just been like Spider-Man and then obviously Miles Morales that have exploded. I assume Spider-Man 2 is going to do very well, probably going to be the best-selling PS5 game, like at least when it comes out, and then until something bigger and better beats it in that way. I imagine that Wolverine game from Insomniac is going to do well also, but that's also from the perspective of the guys who made Spider-Man, so it's kind of different. We know that there's an Iron Man game in development, I think also from EA, isn't that? So yeah, EA is really kind of crushing it on the Marvel games front there, or at least they're trying to. So yeah, do you feel like it's a risky time for them to do this game with the state of some of these Marvel games not really doing too hot? Or do you think that by the time this game's done in like 3 or 4 years, that'll have blown over a bit and we'll be ready for a new kind of era of Marvel games?
I think it's totally fine. I personally think that Midnight Suns I would love to try, but I think that the way that it's I don't have the experience, so I can't speak to it as well as you can. But I feel like its gameplay setup, the way they constructed it, its mechanic, is probably what inhibited a lot of people for wanting a superhero game. I think the same thing with Marvel's Avengers. That also went through a little bit of development kerfuffle. I remember talking about it with you and Travis back in the day
Yeah,
on those
definitely.
newscasts. So I think that at the end of the day, what people really want out of a superhero game is that Amazing Spider-Man 2, Miles Morales. Like that's the free roam. Just give us a city to work with. Because another successful superhero game is Marvel's Lego superheroes, where you
Yeah.
just get your
Yeah.
city and you're just picking different heroes and you're going around doing missions, doing all those different things. It was a damn good game. So that's the kind of element I think people want. Hulk Ultimate Destruction, that's another great example because you get open world, just destroying everything. So put that with any superhero, and I feel like you'll get a good selling game. At least that's my assumption.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I also think that setting of Wakanda is fantastic, whether that is just the lush kind of nature and variety you can do there, like the snowy mountains versus like just the dense jungles and the rivers and whatnot. But then also, man, like I still cannot wait to just have a huge open world Wakanda to explore, if that's what this game ends up being. Because that was one thing I was definitely bummed by in Marvel's Avengers. That Wakanda update, wasn't really what I was looking for. Didn't really hit that check mark for me. But like I don't know. I really think there's a lot you could do there, just exploring the different buildings. And obviously, as Black Panther, you have the key to the city. You can go around to all the different science buildings, the King's Palace and whatnot. I don't know the name terminology of all these things in Wakanda, but I don't know, that just walking around the town from the markets up to like those big buildings, I think could be so engaging, even if there's not really gameplay there. You're just walking around, checking things out, talking to people. That could be great in and of itself. So hopefully they nail it, and we'll keep an eye on this one. It's an interesting kind of setup here, because all this is the Iron Man game has kind of announced very early, and King Captain Soldier Spy potentially as well. So it seems like some of these Marvel games are kind of getting out there nice and early. I mean, even Marvel's Avengers was that way, right? That game was announced so long ago, and then it just took forever for it to actually come out. So we'll keep an eye on this one for sure. But yeah, any final thoughts on that game?
No, but I did. I don't know why I was limiting my mind just thinking about Marvel too in that sense. When you got like DC superhero games that I guess you're kind of hitting murky waters. So maybe there is some like overarching superhero tribulation going on with games, because like Suicide Squad, even Gotham Knights. So maybe it's just something in the water.
Gotham Knights is a good example, because it's probably, we can assume, very similar genre to what this game's going to be. But yeah, it's interesting that I guess EA is the one who wants to, I'll even say, take the risk on it at this point, because obviously Marvel's happy to license out all these games, and who knows how much funding they put into it. I assume EA is putting most of the weight behind this thing. And this is even like a bigger risk because it's a big AAA new studio. And you just mentioned that talent. I'm sure they're not getting cheap paychecks or anything like that. So this is probably going to be a very expensive game. And they're kind of, putting it all on they're just like playing a game of roulette, putting it all in one color at this point, because I don't know, just like look at these Marvel games. Like, they have not been selling well. It doesn't really matter. Like, I love Midnight Suns. Me and Travis love that game. It's one of my favorite games. The DLC was amazing. It doesn't really matter. Like, the sales weren't there to really justify it, and they've been trying to get their money back by dropping it on sales and doing free weekends all the time. But yeah, other than Insomniac, like Marvel's kind of dropping it right now. So yeah, we'll keep an eye on that. And then rolling into our last topic here. So Xbox, been a big week for Xbox One. First off was there's been kind of, I'll say, a bigger step in the Activision Blizzard acquisition thing, where some of these court elements kind of have gone their way. I don't really want to talk about that too much today, just because I feel like in the next couple of days we'll even get more information, because it's still not confirmed. It's not officially happening at this point, because there is still that issue of the UK blocking it because of the cloud monopoly concerns, and that still is not resolved. So even though this one thing kind of went in Xbox's favor, from what I understand, at least, it's not ready. They're not ready to pop off and celebrate and start throwing these things on Game Pass all of a sudden. So yeah, I think we'll kind of wait and talk about that on Sidequest when it's more definitive, because there's been so many updates on this, but I don't really feel like they're really that meaningful until we actually get, until I see that tweet of Phil Spencer saying the deal's done, we're good to go, or honestly, until I see freaking Diablo 2 on Game Pass. That's when I believe that the deal is done. Until then, I don't really care. Like, it's kind of meaningless stuff. Did you want to talk about that at all, or should we just move on to the other Xbox thing?
No, we can move on.
So yeah, what they announced today, I think this has kind of been a long time coming, but Xbox Live Gold is officially going away in September, and they are, we'll say, replacing it or kind of changing it into into just Game Pass Core is what they're calling it. So now there's 3 tiers to Game Pass. There's standard Game Pass, there's Game Pass Core, which is the lowest version, and then Game Pass Ultimate, which is the version that gives you both the PC and the console version along with EA Play. Xbox Game Pass Standard is just the standard version. You pick your PC or console, and you get those games. You don't get EA Play. And Core is now the third and cheaper version out of all of these. So it's, I guess, $9.99 per month. That's probably US dollars. So convert that to your local currency. It's the lowest version. And I guess, this is taking over for Xbox Live. So the big idea there is that this is just how you play if you want to play games online. And I think there's a couple exceptions. Like, I think Fortnite might be an exception just because that game's so big. But otherwise, you need Xbox Live to play games online. So you can do that now through Game Pass Core. But then along with that, you're getting a roster of games. So think of a Game Pass roster, but in this extremely light version of it, you're going to get 25 games. that are not even just first-party games. Some of these are third parties as well. So we'll break down that list in a second. And then they're going to potentially add, I guess, new titles 2 to 3 times a year. So a lot less frequently, whereas Game Pass is adding things every month. This is only going to be 2 or 3 times a year. So, yeah, I think for both of us, like, it's kind of weird because this doesn't really mean much because we're on Ultimate, and I don't think we're going to get off Ultimate anytime soon. So we don't really need this. And like because we have Ultimate, we don't really need Xbox Live Gold because that's rolled into the upper Game Pass subscriptions and all that. So it doesn't really matter for us. But I also think there's a bit of a bittersweet element for where you and I have used Xbox Live for many, many, many years at this point. And so it's a little bit sad to see, the final days of Xbox, Live is going to be coming to an end here. So yeah, before we break into the list of games here, what are your thoughts on this new Game Pass tier?
I wasn't really anticipating it, but I guess like they gotta grow, they gotta make improvements and evolve. You're right, it is bittersweet. I remember the days when you had your silver Xbox membership, and you had your gold membership, and I mean, yeah, those were the days. Oh my goodness! But I'm on Ultimate just like you, as you said, so it's not necessarily gonna affect me. But I think that this provides great incentive, and with PlayStation kind of doing a whole bunch of things like, oh, you get these tiers, you get these games, digital, all that kind of stuff. I think it makes sense for Xbox to kind of like bounce back and come back with something like upgraded. Like, yeah, you're getting 25 of these launch titles, or not launch titles, 25 of these high-end multiplayer titles that you can engage with your friends right off the hop. Deals, discounts, all that kind of stuff. It's worth noting too that the Ultimate's price did go up by $1 in the last 30 days.
And I believe they've also, because there's a big exploit for a while there where you could like buy gold and then like convert it into Game Pass and like save a bunch of money. And then they obviously had like the $1 deals for a long time. And I don't think those exist anymore. So I think there's probably still deals you can get, but now the prices are much more set in stone. And some people like got 2 or 3 years worth and have kind of banked it. So they're good for a while. And those people, obviously they're good until they have to re-up at that point. But yeah, that is a good point, that the lower cost of this is coming at a good time, or if that's becoming prohibitively expensive for some people, well, now here's a cheaper option, and it might not be everything you want, and it might not be everything you need, but at least there's another way in the door, and especially now if you factor in, like, okay, getting Game Pass Core alongside a Series S, like, you can pretty cheaply get in there and have a big roster of really great games to play, like, day one if you buy this new console.
Yeah. It's funny because looking at the pricing when they're talking about choosing the plan that's right for you, you see the core that you mentioned, $9.99 a month. I don't know if that's Canadian or American dollars, but $9.99, and you get the online console multiplayer, you get a catalog of 25 games on console, and you get member deals, discounts, going up by $1. And I feel like that's a very clever marketing play to do this because now you get everything from before, but now you get new games on day one. So you're getting that new Halo the minute it drops, the new Forza, all those things. And I feel like that's such a really clever play. I feel like so many people are going to jump into that tier, and that extra $1 will add a lot, especially when Starfield's going to drop on Games Pass. And
sorry, what is this extra $1? Can you explain that again? Sorry. So that's from Core, or or are you saying that the price between Core and just standard Game Pass?
So I see like the 4 memberships that I have here for Games Pass. There's the Games Pass Core, which is $9.99 a month.
Yeah.
And then you have the just console version, $10.99 a month is what it says. Then there's PC, which is $9.99 a month again, and then Ultimate $16.99.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I guess I hadn't thought about the fact that standard Game Pass is actually dropped by that much. And it's probably honestly something I should like drop my Ultimate Pass at times, because I don't really use the PC version too often. I just use it to play Trickery, which I was talking about last week on Sidequest, but I'm not usually playing things on there too frequently, so it might even be a better idea for me to drop mine down to just a standard version. I'm not really losing much, and I still have access to all the games I would already want, and then just when I feel like I'm in a PC mood, I can up that subscription there. But you're right, that's actually a very similar price, and it feels like you get a lot of extra content for that $1 extra, so you might as well go for it, and that's a good way for them to, sucker you into a better deal or to paying them more money.
It really is. I think the only thing you're losing if you were to drop down is like the EA Play membership, but there's not
Yes,
necessarily
which,
a lot really in
yeah,
there.
not something I'm really using a whole lot. I'll download a game every once in a while just to check it out, but there's none of those have really been like, man, I've been playing this EA game for like months at a time, like some other Game Pass titles. So, some other changes with this is that there was also Xbox with Xbox Live Gold. You had games with Gold, which gave you 2 to 3 games. I think it was maybe 3 games every month that you would just like own, similar to how like PS Plus standard works. They're removing that. I don't think that's really a big deal at all, because I look at what those games are every month, and it is a shitty offering. Like, I don't know. I've not played all those games, so maybe they're really good. But when I look at them, like, I'm very unimpressed. Most of them are games I've never heard of, or look just like old 360 arcade games that are not really that exciting. And especially you compare that to PS Plus, and the free games they do every month are fucking bangers. Like, almost every month they have at least one like really solid title that's like fairly new in there. Whereas games with Gold felt like a relic of the past at this point, and it's just like it's only existed because it had already existed and didn't really make sense anymore. So I don't really see an issue with that going away. You could make an argument, I guess, that trading 2 to 3 games a month for games that you are now just essentially renting with Core could be a downgrade, but I don't really see it that way just because of the quality of the stuff that was on Gold. And it's not like they were sandbagging the last few months to make it look like that. Like, it's been like that for a long time, the games with Gold. So any thoughts on that element?
No, not really.
Okay. Yeah, another thing I'm curious about, so obviously if you have Game Pass, any game that is in the service, if you choose to buy that game, you get a discount of like, I think it's what, 15%. I don't know. I'm guessing that doesn't stack with like if that game is on sale, like just on a regular store sale. I don't think it stacks with your Game Pass one. But with Core, and I don't think this is in this article, but I imagine that those discounts will still exist on those 25 games. But do you think that discount would extend to any games beyond it, like anything else just in the Game Pass catalog? And that even might be a question for me of like, if you have Game Pass Standard versus Ultimate, and there's games that are in Ultimate but not the standard version, I don't even know if you can get discounts on those. But I don't even know, do the EA games have discounts through the Game Pass Ultimate? Like, I don't actually know the answer to that off the top of my head.
I think EA does. I want to say they do, although maybe I could be getting it confused with like a publisher sale.
It's not it's not like 50% or something. Like 10-15% is pretty reasonable. But yeah, I'm assuming for Core that you will only get discounts on those 25 games that exist. And then when they say they're adding 2 to 3 or games 2 to 3 times a year, it's unclear to me if they're going to like have 25 games always and they're rotating that out, or if they're going to keep adding to that and boosting that roster, which is now at 25 games, but might be like, I don't know, 30, 40 games in a year's time. Kind of hard to say. So a few questions there for me still.
Yeah, I could imagine that the member deals and discounts, that it's you pay for the Core membership, you're getting access to online multiplayer, and I imagine that grants you access to, hey, you're getting publisher developer like savings deals, because every so often Xbox like, oh, here's like a Capcom publisher deal, and it's just all of these Capcom titles on for discount. So I imagine that's probably what the member deals and discounts is referring to, more so than Game Pass titles.
Right,
just
that makes sense.
Though.
So let's take a look at this list of games, because I was interested because you mentioned this too, that's kind of like, this is taking over Xbox Live, so you think, okay, we're gonna get some multiplayer titles in there. It makes sense. You got Live, so you can play online. Here's some multiplayer games. But there's a lot of non-multiplayer games in this initial list of 25. So I guess they wanted some variety, but I found that branding to be a bit weird, because even in this article, they're really trying to make it seem like this is, if you want to play multiplayer, this is where you're going. But then they have some things here. So here's the list of games at the launch of September 14th. You have Among Us, Descenders, Dishonored 2, Doom Eternal, Fable Anniversary, Fallout 4, Fallout 76, Forza Horizon 4, Gears 5, Grounded, Halo 5 Guardians, Halo Wars 2, Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice, Human Fall Flat, Inside, Ori and the Will of the Wisps, Psychonauts 2, State of Decay 2, and the Elder Scrolls Online Tamriel Unlimited. So I guess interesting, you'll note that Starfield is not part of that list, which I think is very intentional and makes a lot of sense. But there is things that are pretty new on here. Grounded just came out last year. Psychonauts 2, I guess, was that 2 years ago? Or was that, I think that was also last year at this point. Gears 5 is a fairly new game at this point still. So you have some newer games in here as well as some from definitely a few years ago. But yeah, you have some mix of single player, multiplayer. You have some indie games. You have some non-first party stuff. You have mostly first party stuff. I think really Inside, Human Fall Flat, and Descenders and Among Us. So I guess only 4, or I guess Ori is technically not a first party thing, right? It's like just a heavily associated. So I guess 5 of these games are not first party. The rest are. But yeah, what do you think of this initial list here?
Well, I think that, like you mentioned, no Starfield. Again, it's a push to pay the extra dollar, go to the next tier.
Yep.
But this is fantastic. A lot of people that don't have Games Pass never got into Games Pass. This is a great sampler. You're getting Halo, you're getting Gears of War, Fable, you're getting some very familiar titles in there, and some new stuff too, which I think is really, really nice. Looking at this, if I didn't have that Ultimate, I'd be super, super stoked with this. I can get my racing out of my system, play some Fallout. So there's lots, and Doom as well. There's State of Decay 2. That's also probably like the highlight of everything on this list for me is State of Decay 2 and Halo Wars 2. Those two right there would be for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think if someone has maybe taken a break from gaming and they missed the Xbox One, PS4 generation, then this could be a pretty damn stellar list and be a great way to like get a new console, get core, play through these games. That would give you a lot to chew on. And I feel like very intentionally, because if you look at here, like obviously they include a lot of Bethesda things. That acquisition happened a while ago now, but it seemed pretty intentional to me that they tried to seemingly include kind of one game from a lot of their major developers, right? So you have Doom Eternal from id, you have Dishonored 2 from Arcane, you have, I guess, Fallout 4 and 76 from Bethesda Game Studios, Fable, obviously Lionhead Studios not around anymore, the Playground, you got Forza Horizon, Coalition, Gears, Obsidian, Grounded, I guess Halo 5 would have been 343, so you got their game there, Hellblade from Ninja Theory, and then Psychonauts 2 is that studio that I can't remember the name off the top of my head. State of Decay 2, I forget that studio. But yeah, you're kind of getting, with the exception of Fallout 4 and 76, everything on here is like, here's a different big Xbox first-party studio. Here's one title from all of their catalog, and it's like they're trying to pick a big banger title. Like Dishonored 2 is a great pick for an Arcane selection there. Doom Eternal is a great selection for id, for example. And so I feel like they're getting you in the door and whetting your appetite by like, okay, here's a great game from a bunch of Xbox first-party studios. If you like this, bump up your tier by $1 or more up to Ultimate, and you can get a whole bunch more of these things. You can play these entire studios worth of catalog, the entire studio catalogs for all of these things in here. And then obviously you have a few indies in there just to brighten it up and change up some of the vibe of it. So I think this is a pretty solid list. Do you expect that they'll keep it to roughly 25 and rotate games out when they do these rotations, or will they keep adding to this? Because you'd think like that's not really sustainable forever, because eventually then like core is going to be in the 5 years time. Core and regular Game Pass would have the same roster at some point. So I'm almost wondering if they're going to cull this list when they do updates to it.
Well, it does say game library may vary over time, so I imagine that'll change over.
Well, I mean, that would even make sense for something like a non-first party thing, like Inside. It would make sense that's not in here forever, whereas something like Fallout 4, you would assume that's always going to be Xbox for the rest of the time until Xbox goes under. So yeah, something like that should probably stay there unless they're trying to keep it to 25. But maybe it's those indies, those non-first parties that are the things that rotate out.
That's totally plausible. I do think that, because again, is there 25 in this list, or is there less?
I think so,
than 25?
Yeah.
Because more collection of more than 25 titles from Xbox Game Studios, Bethesda. So I didn't do titles added 2 or 3 times per year. I could see them going above 25 to like the 30 round ish.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I get good point. Actually, there will be more than this, and maybe this is not 25. Let's see, 20. Oh, you're right. This is about 20. Okay, so we know that there's going to be about 5 more in there. So I'd have to go take a look at Game Pass right now and see what studio feels like they're missing or what game feels like it's missing. But I guess to me, the ones that make so much sense here, like Fallout 76 and Elder Scrolls Online, of being those like very like first party Bethesda multiplayer focused games that they probably want. Like once again, these games every year after year after year, whether there's a Bethesda conference and now Xbox conference, are always having like, here's our new update, and here's like the fresh new content in here. So I guess in that way, like it's kind of weird that Sea of Thieves is not in this list. You would think that would be the one. I don't know if that's a big enough deal that they feel like it's a selling point to get people to upgrade to that next tier. But I will not be shocked if that ends up being one of the other games that is here at launch, because I feel like those three being the kind of live servicey Xbox games, those will always be on this core list. I think the Xbox Live pairing makes too much sense with it, and I think they always want as many players playing those games as much, because that's what keeps them alive, right?
Yeah. What about a Redfall? Could you see them popping that on this list?
No, I don't think so, because they want to sell people to pick up their service and play great games. Because like, I don't know. I guess Halo 5 had some controversy and whatnot, but like still great. Well, what was, I always forget. Was the multiplayer or the single player the good or bad part of it?
It's a single player, no co-op, just piss the community off.
But the multiplayer was good. So I guess
great.
If they're trying to sell this, okay, go play Halo 5, get your multiplayer fixed there. Like, yeah, not like they're picking the best game from every studio here, but like, if you're picking Arcane, yeah, you're going to go with Dishonored 2 over Redfall any day if you're trying to sell people on Arcane being a cool studio that makes great games and this being a service that you want to be subscribed to for the rest of your life. And like Doom Eternal, like obviously that game was huge and everyone loves it and it's great. You could probably put Doom 2016 and have more or less the same effect. But yeah, the list feels very intentional in that way too. Like, yeah, Fable Anniversary, one of Xbox's most legendary games. Like, yeah, it makes too much sense in some ways. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's pretty much everything I had to say about this. Any thoughts or anything else we missed here?
I don't think so. I'm excited to see where they take it. I really, really am. Again, that's what Sony's been up to and what they're doing now with Xbox. It's good because it's just going to be, it's that rivalry. It's just going to create more competition and it's going to benefit us as the consumer. Mm-hmm. Hopefully.
Yeah, and I feel like too, I remember when PlayStation... when Sony did their revamp of PlayStation Plus last year, I found it very confusing, and I still find it very confusing. And perhaps part of that is because I don't own a PlayStation 5 right now, and I'm not really playing my PS4 very much, and so I'm not actively looking at those lists, and I'm not seeing them on my console. But I feel like the way Xbox has done this by having like standard Xbox or Game Pass, Ultimate kind of makes sense as that way to get the two versions, and Core as like just that very basic. If you're playing online, this is the way to do it. I feel like the branding and this... It just makes a bit more sense than what PlayStation has going on there, at least branding-wise, even though I think probably to some extent, like, PlayStation's offering, while their Game Pass offering is not quite as good, like some of their classic games that they offer is like a pretty great selection on there, too. So I even just think the wording of it, and it could be that I'm more used to this ecosystem right now, not to sound like a fanboy or something like that, but I feel like it makes a bit more sense than, like, PS Plus Essential versus Premium versus... There's another one that I can't remember the name of. So hopefully this remains to not be very confusing for people. And I think getting rid of Xbox Live Gold makes sense. I just feel like that was very much a 360 rolling an Xbox One thing, but it felt outdated at this point. So I think to get Game Pass even more, they can put more marketing behind Game Pass. Like it all just kind of makes more sense under the Xbox umbrella. So there you go. That was the episode. That was a lot of fun, Taylor. A lot of good topics today. Next week will be the Pikmin 4 review. Kirkland's going to be picking that up. I'm very excited to hear him talk all about that game. I will not be picking it up day one, I don't think, but I'm very excited to talk to him about it. So if anyone has any thoughts about the game, if you're playing it, any questions, whatever it is, send it our way. We'll include it in the episode. If not, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.